Hello and welcome again, everyone, to another amazing edition of Cooking with Sun King. We are back here at the signature table at Fisher's Test Kitchen with our great friends from Green Bean Delivery to provide you with another awesome episode. Today, we are going to take delicious orange vanilla sunlight cream ale and turn it into these beautiful morning buns. You can call it an orange bun, a sticky bun, whatever you want. Essentially a cinnamon roll without the cinnamon, but we are going to focus on orange and vanilla in all three phases of this. We've got a beautiful dough. We've got a nice little filling, and then of course a wonderful cream cheese icing to go over the top. If you're ready, I'm ready. He's ready. Ooh, 2-camera shoot day. Woo! Let's get started. To start, our dough today is essentially an enriched dough. That means it has a little bit of butter and a little bit of egg to not only provide that beautiful kind of luxurious texture, but that protein kind of helps keep things nice and fluffy and super delicious. So we are going to start with our wet. Usually most traditional yeast doughs start this way. So for us, it's going to be whole milk, orange vanilla sunlight, a little bit of melted butter. If you're doing this in a stand mixer, just make sure your butter is softened. Room temperature is fine, but since I'm just using these, we are going to go melted. 1 egg, a tablespoon of yeast, or about 8 grams. Same of sugar, which goes up to about 12 grams because it's a little more dense. And we're gonna mix all of that together and let it hang out for just a little bit. We wanna see that yeast bloom. We wanna make sure it's still active. It's always a good test to just wait 5 minutes. And from there, we'll go in with about 16 ounces of King Arthur organic all-purpose flour and just a little bit of salt. That salt is not only going to help season our dough, but it also helps kind of retard the yeast a little bit so our dough doesn't end up just everywhere. We want that delicious dough, and we get there with just a little bit of salt. So let's get started. So whole milk, our orange vanilla sunlight, our melted butter, 1 huevo, our guisto terroristo, sugar, and then we'll whisk just with a fork, just to really break up the egg and kind of combine everything. Helps dissolve the sugar, incorporates everything else. We don't need to go too crazy because it'll mix in while we do our dough. And that's it. So we'll let this sit for just about 5 minutes, and then we can add our flour and salt. 5 minutes later. So we see some bubbles on the top. We are then going to add in our all-purpose flour. And since our yeast has been activated, we can then add our salt. Typically you want to keep the salt as far away from the yeast as possible because it will slow everything down. If it comes in direct contact, it could actually kill the yeast, which ruins your bread, and which isn't very fun, but we can put this right on top. Just about a teaspoon. Gently mix this first with a fork, and then I'll just go in with my hands to finish everything, and we'll let it rise for the first time. You'll also notice that this is a pretty soft and supple dough. We want things to be as fluffy as humanly possible to accept all of that delicious orange butter that we're gonna put on the inside and cream cheese frosting that goes on the out. We'll let this sit for just about an hour until it doubles. And then while that's hanging out, we can make our filling and our frosting. So while our dough is proofing, we need to make our filling. 3 ingredients, 4 if you count the salt, a cup of sugar, again, just a nice generous pinch of salt, 1/2 cup of melted or softened butter. If it's softened, that's totally fine. Again, if you're using a mixer, I'm just gonna do this by hand, so my butter's just a little melted. As long as we can spread it, we're good to go, so we'll go in with that. Give this just a quick stir. Wonderful. And then to that, we're gonna add the zest of a whole orange. We really want to kind of help that delicious orange vanilla cream ale flavor come through, so it's already in the dough. We'll have orange, delicious orange in the filling, and then we'll also have a little bit of orange vanilla cream ale in the frosting as well. So nice orange. Try to make sure you're not getting the white part, which is the pith, but go ahead and zest away and put as much as you feel like in there. But we're gonna go with 1 whole, kind of, I guess just a little smaller than softball size navel orange. So we've got all that together. Give it 1 more mix. We'll set that aside. Last but not least, we wanna make our cream cheese frosting. It's kind of a glaze, kind of a frosting. It should be pourable, or at the very least, really easy to spread. We are going to start with organic Valley cream cheese. We want as much at room temperature as possible. Again, just a little bit more melted butter. We have just a little bit of vanilla bean paste or vanilla extract, and this is the good stuff. So just a little goes a long way, probably about a 1/2 teaspoon there. And then we've got 1 whole cup of powdered sugar. And then to kind of bulk up that beer flavor, we've got just about 2 teaspoons of our orange vanilla cream ale. And as previously mentioned, 1 nice pinch of salt, makes everything good. And then we'll mix. Again, just because of the powdered sugar, you want to do this slowly at first. Otherwise, you'll get a cloud of it everywhere and it will be super fluffy. So nice and slow first. And then when we're about 60 or even 70 or 80% of the way done, we can really ramp it up and get it all whipped and combined everything so there are no lumps. And again, we'll set that aside and let it rest while we assemble our sticky buns. So our dough has doubled. We're going to punch it down, roll it out into a kind of an 18 by 12 inch rectangle. We will then take our delicious butter and orange filling and spread that all evenly across. We will roll it up like a nice little pinwheel. I always like to just give a little pinch there in the end so they stay nice and tight. And then we will load them into our pan. We're looking for about a dozen of these guys. We will let them proof one more time for just 20 to 30 minutes, just until they look nice and puffy and ready to go. And then into the oven, 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes, just until they're brown on the top. And then we can glaze and drink a beer because that's also fun. Let's go. So to roll this out, we always start with what we call bench flour. Obviously, I'm not working on a bench. This is just a nice stainless steel table. But this allows us to make sure nothing gets too sticky because this dough is pretty sticky. And then we're gonna take our dough out. It always does help to kind of start in the shape of the thing that you want to go. So we are starting with our rectangle. We'll dust a little bit more flour on top just so everything stays perfect and doesn't stick. And this dough is soft enough. You could do this with a rolling pin, but I think I'm just gonna go in with my hands. We are pushing out some of the bubbles, but this also allows our dough to be perfectly consistent. That makes darn sure every single roll will be the same size, the same thickness, and those big bubbles won't kind of ruin things for us. They've been known to do that. And then we go in with our butter, orange, and sugar mixture. And this, to make it easier to spread, we're just gonna kind of dot all over the place. We are leaving ourselves about 1.5 to 2 inches at the very top because I'm going to roll away from me. And then just using our rubber spatula, or if you have an offset, that'll work too. We're just gonna begin to spread all of this out. You don't have to be super exact about it. Each one hopefully is going to have about the same amount of filling. We just want one nice even layer, making sure to try and go as far to the edge as possible. We will trim those off just a little bit, just to make sure every single one is perfect. And again, we'll take this all the way to one edge because we want that filling to be in every single nook and cranny of these rolls. Nice and even. Collect any stuff that's on the side there. And I think that does it. We're ready to roll. So to start, we're gonna start on one end and just give ourselves that first lip. And really what this allows us to do is it does make everything a lot easier from there because the kind of the further you go, the easier it gets, but we do wanna make sure it's nice and tight and nice and even. If you see any bubbles along the way, give them a pop. As you can see, we've kind of reached the point where we need to tuck everything together. So we'll roll it all the way over, bring it a little closer. And then as previously mentioned, I'm just going to give a light pinch to all of these so they stay closed while we maneuver them around. Otherwise, they'll all just unfurl on you and not become very delicious. Making sure nothing else is sticking. Roll it back over. If there's a couple of holes, that's fine too. Again, we're gonna marry these all together in our pan. So we need to then cut these into 12. The best way to do that is just to make sure everything is nice and even. I'm not gonna worry about trimming the edges today because we'll have some ones that'll look a little different, but that's okay. It's homemade, it's not that big of a deal. So the best thing to do is to kind of find your center point, and I'm using a serrated knife. You can also use a little bit of I gotta make sure this is right, unflavored, unwaxed dental floss. It does a really good job of helping cut through. Obviously don't use the minty stuff, because that's just weird. And then these go into our pan. And you can put these in a 9x13 if you have one at home. I've got this just nice little kind of foil baking dish because we'll take them over to a friend's house and that way we don't have to worry about losing our stuff. I'm just gonna hit these with just a little bit of pan spray. And that is actually going to help when we want to tear these apart. They'll definitely bake together, but that also allows us to make sure that we can pull them apart. And so we will let these rise for another 25 to 30 minutes at the most. Again, bake at 350 degrees for just about 25 to 30 minutes. If you're a temperature kind of person, bread is usually done between the 200 and 205 degree mark. If not, we'll just be looking for a nice hollow sound when we give them a tap. Not super, super dark brown because we want to keep these nice and light, and we're ready to go. So as soon as those came out of the oven, let them sit for just a minute or two at the most, and then we put our delicious cream cheese glaze over the top so it melts into all of those little nooks and crannies. And you can serve immediately if you want. These will even last up to a couple of days as long as you just keep them in the fridge. Pull one out when you're ready. Maybe even just throw it in the toaster oven or the microwave if you want. But those are our orange vanilla rolls, made of course with orange vanilla cream ale. And as always, we want to thank everyone here at the signature table at Fister's Test Kitchen for hosting us. And of course, our great friends at Green Bean Delivery for all of these recipes, including the ones all the way back yonder. You'll find all of those links underneath, more specifically at greenbeandelivery.com/blog. And then below that as well is all of the links for the merch and for all of our other cooking with videos and everything else having to do with Sun King. And then right over here or wherever they are those like and subscribe buttons. If you're hanging out with us on Instagram or Facebook, head on over to YouTube. Hit those like and subscribes. You'll get notifications as soon as we put out a new video, and you'll get to hang out with us, and you'll get to know that I love you. But that's it for us today. We hope you enjoyed this. That's it for us today. Cheers.